For most of Texas history, the white-tailed deer lived in the shadow of a much larger animal. When buffalo still roamed Texas, they dominated the landscape. Early accounts describe millions of bison moving seasonally across the plains, grazing grass down to the soil, trampling trails into the earth, and reshaping entire ecosystems simply by passing through. White-tailed deer were there too, but they weren't the centerpiece. They stayed closer to timber, river bottoms, oak moats, and broken country, while buffalo occupied open grasslands. Whitetail lived along the edges. They browsed shrubs, forbs, and low-growing vegetation rather than grazing grass. Their survival depended on cover and not size or numbers, and that difference mattered a lot. Native peoples of Texas understood it well. Tribes such as the Comanche, Apache, and earlier cultures hunted whitetail long before European settlement. And deer were a dependable resource, present year-round, easier to approach than buffalo, and valuable beyond just meat. Ethnographic records and early settler journals describe how deer were hunted using drives, ambushes along trails, and coordinated movement through brush. Bows, atlatls, and later firearms were used, but success depended more on understanding movement than on weapons themselves. Deer hides were used for clothing and shelter, and the bones were turned into tools. The sinew was used for binding. Nothing was wasted. Buffalo hunts were major events. Deer hunts were more routine. That balance shifted dramatically in the mid-1800s. As Texas was settled and commercial hunting expanded, buffalo populations collapsed. Within a few decades, an animal that had defined the plains was nearly erased from the region. By the late 19th century, buffalo were effectively gone from Texas outside of a few protected or captive herds. Whitetail, though, remained. German settlers who arrived in the Texas Hill Country in the 1840s and 1850s left detailed, written records through letters, diaries, and farm journals. And in those writings, deer appear frequently. Buffalo rarely do. These settlers depended on venison as a primary protein source. Whitetail were hunted close to homesteads, along creek beds, and near cultivated fields. And many accounts describe deer feeding in crops at night and retreating into cover during the day, patterns that we're still familiar with today. Without buffalo shaping the land, vegetation began to change. Grasses grew taller and denser, and shrub cover expanded. Fence line and farms further fragmented open country. These changes favored whitetail, and they adapted quickly. Deer learned to live near people without being seen. They shifted movement to low light and darkness, and they used edges where woods met fields, and where creeks cut through pasture, where brush bordered open ground. By the early 1900s, whitetail were not only surviving, they were increasing. Ironically, they never really disappeared anyway. Unregulated hunting and habitat loss caused severe population declines in the early 20th century. By the 1930s, whitetail were scarce in many parts of Texas, and state-led conservation efforts regulated the seasons, and habitat management reversed that trend. Buffalo never received the same chance. Today's whitetail live in a Texas shaped by absence. The wide-open grazing pressure of bison is gone, the land is more segmented, and movement is more cautious. Survival favors animals that have hidden and adapted more quickly. And that's why whitetail are the deer of modern Texas. They were never the largest, they were never the loudest, but they endured through quite a bit. And every buck moving through the night today carries traits refined over centuries. Traits shaped first by buffalo-dominated ecosystems, then by settlement, and finally by modern pressure. The story of the whitetail isn't about dominance, it's about persistence.